Today's story is about another woman in the Bible called Tamar. Tamar was a daughter to David. She was a princess and she was a virgin. She was so beautiful. She was actually a sister to Amnon and Absalom. She had two brothers, and Amnon just felt she was just out of her reach because of her beauty. Amnon still saw her as beyond the sister-brother relationship. This is when she reached puberty. Amnon was obsessed with her sister Tamar, and it's not normal for a brother to be obsessed in that way, but he was so obsessed with her, up to the point that he was always constantly watching her, and whenever she goes out, and she was like pretty much stalking her. It's just seriously not normal. When somebody is obsessed with you, it's like everywhere you go, they're like just there. You feel like they're watching you. He probably wanted to see her wherever he was. Even though Amnon was his half-brother, he was still obsessed with her. That didn't stop him from living that fantasy. He eventually just went up to a friend, because he had stopped even eating, because he told his friend about his problem, what problem he had, and suggested maybe you should pretend like you're sick and just pretend like you're not eating, you're so sick, so that you can get Tamar to your bedroom. Sometimes we need to be careful on who you go to for advice. People that you call your friends could not be your friends. They could be your enemy. I mean, what kind of a friend that would lead you astray? It's just not normal. So sometimes you must be very careful on the advices that you get from friends. And Tamar was there bringing food for his half-brother, thinking that he was sick. She was just being a good sister, not knowing what is coming. Tamar brought him the food, and in that process he managed to rape her. He violated his own sister because she was not strong enough to fight for herself. He totally disgraced her. Tamar went out and she was screaming and crying. Tamar probably had an arranged marriage, probably from a young age, that she was probably going to marry somebody else. But out of the stupid deeds that his stepbrother committed, this didn't go as planned. Can you just mess up somebody's future for your own selfish deeds? Was not listening because he was just full of lust. He was just clouded with his obsession. He needed to do what he needed to do. She knew this was wrong, and she knew that this is an abomination. It really wasn't her fault. She just wanted to bring her brother food, but he had other motives, and the deed was done. I guess she tried to get him to stop, but because he was stronger than her, obviously, she couldn't get to that. She couldn't get to do that. When this deed was done, when he finished to do what he wanted to do, he kicked her out. He suddenly kicked her out. He couldn't even use her name after this whole deed, because this obsession that he had over her had suddenly vanished. I mean, I can imagine him saying, put this woman out of my presence, like she was just this filthy woman, because he had satisfied his own lust issues. Now, how cruel can you get to your very own sister? It's like she was like this dirty person. She actually tore her royal robe because she felt undeserving. She ran out with her hands on her head and she was screaming in the palace corridors, up to the point where she managed to get into her mother's quarters, where her mother was, and everyone was watching at her. When, as a woman, you see somebody looking like that, you know exactly what had happened. The other stepsisters, they felt the pain. But I suppose nobody could help at that moment. Her virginity was lost, and probably what was running into her mind is, who's going to marry me now? He reported the incidents to his father. I guess his father has got his own issues as well, because we look at in 1 Samuel, he lusted over Bathsheba, and what happened is they ended up killing Bathsheba's husband for him to eventually marry Bathsheba. He also acted a sin because he eventually killed Bathsheba's husband by pretending that he must go to war. He also wanted to cover his own deeds. So now this is a father that's broken, and the son comes back and does something similar. In today's life, many women, they face these situations whereby they're raped by members of their own family. Somebody within the house, not somebody outside, but it's somebody within their very own homes. And they cannot speak because it's a family member. They have to deal with the situation and just keep quiet. Sometimes they do try to speak, especially sometimes when you are abused by a stepdad and you try to tell your mother that your stepdad has abused you and your mother just doesn't protect you. Some women, they find themselves in that situation, and it's always people close to home. We see that in the book of Micah 7 verse 6, where it reads that a man's enemies are members of his own household. And as a family, you try to cover up the situation because it's embarrassing. You think about your own selfish deeds to protect your family, and you're not protecting that person that's been violated. Sometimes it even goes as far as relationships where a man will pretend like they just love you just to get you in between the sheets. And once they get you between the sheets, then they ghost you. So we have to be very careful sometimes who we bring into our lives. You'll find yourself in a toxic relationship. So this brings a lot of trauma in women, emotionally and physically. They become toxic as well in their own relationship because they never got to speak what happened to them when they're young. If you are a father, you're supposed to protect your child, especially if it's a girl child, because you know how it is to be a man. You should supposed to be there for your children. You're supposed to support your child. David did not support Tamar. David did nothing to support her daughter. I feel like he was just like his own son. The deed he had committed years back followed him because his very own son began to do the same thing. Instead of dealing with the abuser, he protected the abuser. Now, who does that? Even though he was very good with God, but he wasn't a good father. He should have protected. This is why you get children seeking love from older men, especially if their fathers who are supposed to be there for them and to show them love are not there. And then you find a child going out there and dating this old guy with a huge belly. Sometimes as a child you need to have a good figure father to guide you towards the world, because the world is very cruel out there. If your own family member can violate you and break your virginity, something that's most precious to a woman, then the family, they cover the whole situation like nothing happened. It's emotionally damaging. In this story, Tamar was there. Nobody protected her. She felt very unprotected. Even her brother Absalom just wanted her to keep quiet with regards to the situation. She felt dirty. It's emotionally damaging. When it comes to lust, lust is a spirit. And you will struggle. Until you fulfill what your lust issues, you'll just keep struggling. We read about that in Galatians 5 verse 13, where he explains about sexual immorality. When it comes to the spirit of lust, once you've fulfilled your deeds, it just disappears. And what comes in? Hate. This is when sometimes when you think you're in a relationship with somebody and you sleep with them and you give them your body, and the following day or maybe the following week, this person is no longer interested. It was just lust. That person had no intention of loving you, and they would just never marry you. So it's very important to keep that cookie in the jar. Don't just dish it out to everyone. Keep that cookie in the jar. When it comes to Tamar, she was violated. But when you decide to give somebody else your cookie, you're not violated. You're in agreement with that person. So when that person decides that they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to see you the following day, this is when you're emotionally hurt. Because sex is also spiritual. You have given that person the right to fulfill his lust over you. Even though Absalom killed his brother, that doesn't help, because that happens like 2 years later. Sometimes when situations like this happen, you need to pull yourself up, especially if you see that your family are not supporting, and get counseling and heal yourself, because healing takes time, but eventually you'll be healed. Once you do that, it will help you in the long run. Rape is not easy to deal with, but God is there also to help us heal in our hearts. Seek help. Don't keep quiet, seek help. Thank you for watching. If this is content that you like, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. God bless you.